Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ here with Tim's Nation, bringing you part 4 of my review, reaction, all of it for the Necron data sheets and codex. This video is for all my cronies out there who are batedly waiting to see what is going to be competitive out of this book. And not to say that any one person's opinion is fact. There's a bunch of different opinions because this has been a very, very deep book. I'm going to keep referring to it as a book. This has been a deep book. There's a lot of cool abilities in there, a lot of functional abilities. And as I've kind of noticed with some of my buddies who I talk to about Necrons right now, the biggest concern we have is we start to put all this cool stuff together and it's getting really, really expensive. Units with characters attached to them. And I think the big question right now comes down to what characters do we actually need and when? Is it safe to take a 20-man warrior with no characters attached for 240 points? Or are we going to put all the characters onto it because we need them, and we're getting up to around 430 points, nearly double the cost in some cases. So it's a big part of it's going to be seeing how the game shapes up, seeing what we need to play to win, and how this is going to happen. So there's just a lot of theoreticals on it. It's very fitting that the last video, I'm going to be covering monsters and vehicles. And why I say that's fitting is monsters and vehicles for most armies, including Necrons, they function in their own world. And what I mean by that is they have their own jobs. You're not attaching a character to them. They might be able, with Necrons, they can get a buff for technically counting as having a character in there, which is something we'll talk about in a second and how that works. But for the most part, they are their own entity. So what happens with a lot of these units, and my impression, is that a lot of the units in the Necron Codex fall into what are you using here and what vehicles, monsters, etc., can help support that army and that build. And that's what we're going to go over. Now, the kind of nice thing about this is, while I've looked at, I'd say probably about 50% of the data sheets, there are a couple that I really, really haven't dove into, some of which are the Tesseract Vault, taking a second look at the Monolith, and really rereading the Obelisk, because the Obelisk didn't seem too bad. And then we also have spoilers on some other disappointing ones that people may disagree with me on, such as the Convergence of Dominion, sadly. So, guys, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do. Turn on the bell for notification, get notified of more videos such as this one. The next video that I'm going to be making after this one will be my first list that I'll be putting on the channel, which is going to be this week, where I will be facing Lane's Death Watch. We're going to do the Mission Only War that's in the back of the rulebook, simply because we want to keep it simple while we're learning the armies right now. I've seen a lot of people that are able to get taking some of the cards off the internet, printing out some of these battle reports and stuff like that. And there is so many layers to this game right now that me and Lane want to kind of take a step back and go, okay, let's learn what our army can do and how this synergizes first versus another army of equal points, and figure out what we need to do from there, and then start looking at the missions and the primaries more so when we actually have the cards in our hand. There's a lot. We're already spending a lot of time on research. I'm sure everyone else understands and knows this. We're spending a lot of time. And when I say we're, I don't mean me and Lane. I mean the community as a whole. We're spending a lot of time reading the rules, getting used to the interactions. Now it's time to start executing it. Put it on the table, see what these things can and cannot do, and start making some changes. So I'm going to, right now I have a list. Actually, technically I have two lists. The one list is more finalized than the other one, and that is the list of things I need to paint and or build. And I bet a bunch of people are shaking their heads right now going, yep, I feel that pain. There's a bunch of units that we weren't using before that we're going to be taking off the shelf, and well, they might need a little bit of love. There's a reason they were on the shelf for a while, and just remember, you can pick up an air duster at your local hardware store for pretty cheap. And I recommend that, especially with some of these very, very fine models. Unless you're like one of my very close buddies, where I think we're going to have to soap and water clean his. Funny little story. He was doing some work in the basement. Not funny, kind of sad. Doing some work in his basement, and real nice room, real nice layout, everything like that. but he forgot to block the room that was carrying and covering all his Warhammer, and all of his stuff is covered in sawdust and stuff like that. So, been kind of a sad point, but I told him, I was like, hey, look, just tell me what you want to play. Let's get the models boxed up. I'll help you. Soap, water, and a toothbrush. We'll get this taken care of because that's the type of friend I am. So, once he can get some time to get those together, that'll be nice. Can possibly have another Eldar player that can come over on the channel. But yeah, that's what we're looking at moving forward into the future. My second list right now is sitting at about for Necrons. That's almost finished. Is sitting at 1390 in points right now. So I have a little bit of room to play. And one of the aspects I need to look at is the vehicles. So I've done enough talking about the future of the channel. Let's talk about vehicles and monstrous creatures. Speaking of monsters, that's the one we're starting off with. And a good one to start off with. The Canoptic Reanimator. The meme of 9th edition for Necrons. One of many. This one kind of breaks the mold of what people have said with Games Workshop, how when they release new units and new models, they're usually super powered, super broken, so they can sell new models. This guy never had it in 9th. His ability was too slow. Too slow, I guess the best way to say it. You could spend 2 command points, but later in the edition, with command points being so much harder to come by, spending 2 command points to target a unit during your opponent's turn if you didn't go first was just impossible in later editions, later era of the game of 9th. And then even early on, it was very, very restricted. It felt like something was missing. Like whoever was working on the reanimation rule wasn't talking to the guy working on the reanimator, that maybe the guy who designed the reanimator actually intended for it to be able to go reanimation up to 3 up, or the squad was meant to be a 1 to 3 choice, something like that. But it just didn't feel like, it felt like something was missing there. And they tried reducing the points, but still the thing was squishy. You get around a corner, you point 1 multi-melta at it, the thing's gone. Now, things are a little bit different. He is still fragile. I will say, like, he's tougher, but fragile. Except in the time frame your opponent is trying to get to him, it can do some work. So, Canoptic Reanimator starts off, it's got 6 wounds. 1+1 from what it had before. A toughness 6, which I believe was what it was before. It might have been T5, actually. And a 3 up save. Okay. It is a Canoptic unit, so all of its weapon skill and ballistic skills 4 up. It's got the Autonomizer Beam, Strength 6, AP 2, 1 damage, so actually a better gun. Now, this thing does have 2 of the Autonomizer Beam, so it's going to get 6 shots when it shoots. And then it's got the Reanimator Claws for Strength 5, AP 0, 1 damage. You know, this thing is not a combat monster. It's not meant to clear the field. What you're taking it for is the Nano Scarab Reanimation Beam. While a friendly Necron unit is within 12 inches of this model, each time that unit's reanimation protocol activates, the unit's reanimate an additional D3. So Necron warriors become D3 plus D3 plus 3. Regular Lich Guard and everything else, all the other guys, D3 plus D3, 2D3. That's pretty good. That's good value. Now, number one, the first thing I always do, and this is a hint when you look at auras and you want to judge if an aura is good or not. Number one, does it require line of sight? When a friendly Necron unit is within 12 inches of this model, comma, each time that unit's reanimation protocol is activated, comma, that unit reanimates an additional D3. No line of sight requirement. So this guy can hide behind a wall and just kick out beams. Now, it is tall, so you're going to have to watch with some of the terrain restrictions and make sure that you stay off of ruins bases to be able to still function. Having a 12-inch range makes that easier. If it was a 6 or a 9, we'd be much more in the column. Now, the other big thing is within, because the other kicker, wholly within or within. For this, it says a friendly Necron unit is within 12 inches. So as long as you have one model within that 12, they get the additional D3. These guys are, it's for their point value, I think they're 95 apiece. They're really good. I like them a lot. Now, this, I feel like right now, what this is going to come into is going to be the fact of, we're going to look at them real quick, Canoptic Reanimator, 95 points. So what I think this is going to come into, I think we're going to see with the Reanimator for right now, at least for the initial point of 10th edition, is he is 95 points. So if you go down the route of a build where you don't have as many characters in units and you're worrying more about the what was it called? The Sovereign Coronal. I'm butchering that. 30-point upgrade. And this is one that I wanted to also discuss because it's going to be a big part with all these things. So the Sovereign gives you a 6-inch aura for your character to count these units as having a character in them for command protocols and the stratagem purposes. So that also does go over for your monsters and vehicles if they're within 6 inches of it. So a Reanimator does well in that kind of build. Not that he's going to get the buff for having a character in there. That doesn't really matter as much. It's the fact that he can, when you have that character that's buffing multiple units and such, now the points you would save on instead of purchasing an Overlord with a Resurrection Orb that's dedicated to one unit, you're purchasing a Reanimator who's dedicated to multiple units. So I think there is some play behind this, and there is a style here. I think that it is a style of less characters, more value in a way. My initial play is I'm going more characters because of some of the characters I haven't gotten to use yet. I want to see where this can go with it. But I think I like him. I definitely think there's going to be some future possible builds that I might run him in. Again, like right here, Hexmark Destroyer. Hexmark Destroyer with a Sovereign. You have the Hexmark having Lone Operative, the Reanimator behind a wall. Someone tries to pop in or tries to shoot the stuff. That Reanimator, the Hexmark might be able to help pick it off, and the Hexmark is a great character for the Sovereign because of the fact that he has Lone Operative and can still stay protected very, very well. All right, so now while we scan through and get over, here we go. The next one, the Triarch Stalker. And once again, the Triarchs. The Triarchs that just don't seem to do what they should do versus lore. Now, this guy, at least, this is, I literally, okay, so he isn't bad, but it's literally a carbon copy of what he's been since inception. Everything that he does is exactly the same, just with new bells and whistles and twists on it. So he's got 12 wounds and a toughness 8. And a 4-up invulnerable save. No crazy quantum shielding, no automatic transhuman, none of that stuff. His special ability is targeting relay. In your shooting phase, each time this model is selected to shoot after resolving its attacks, select one enemy unit that was hit by one or more of those attacks. Until the end of the phase, the unit cannot have the benefit of cover. So once again, the way it's functioning is it needs to shoot and hit something to give an ability to the rest of your army. Where in previous editions, he gave full rerolls. Now he doesn't give that. Instead, he ignores the benefits of cover. So I think that is significantly weaker. Yes, rerolls have been reduced across the board. Needless to say, having rerolls from this thing would be the more powerful choice as opposed to just ignoring cover. Looking over at its guns. So what do we get? First of all, before we look at everything with this and the stats and the guns, really quick, Triarch. For the points purposes, we're looking at 125 points. So that's pretty cheap. That is relatively cheap. We got a toughness 8 with 12 wounds. Okay, that's not terrible. 4-up invuln, that's nice. 3-up save. He's OC 4 and his guns. So you get to pick either the Heat Ray, the Particle Shredder, or the Twin Heavy Gauze. So the Heat Ray is the Melta anti-tank option. You have 2 focuses of fire on it. You can do disperse or focused. The dispersed ignores cover. It's torrent, so auto hit. That's nice, especially with Overwatch. 2d6 shots, very nice. Strength 5, AP 1 damage. So it looks good. That looks good. The Heat Ray is 18-inch range, 2 attacks. Strike 9, -4 d6 damage. Melta 4 though. So that's the Melta is nice to make it a little more powerful, but the strength 9 concerns me with some of the bigger stuff in there. I would have liked to have seen a strength 12 out of the Heat Ray. especially with only having 2 shots and it only having an 18-inch range makes it kind of rough. Particle Shredder, 18-inch range, D6 plus 6 shots with hitting on 2s for this one. Strength 7, AP 0, 1 damage. Now, the Particle Shredder, has Blast, so you're getting an additional 1 shot per 5 models in the unit, and Devastating Wounds. So it's only 1 damage, but the volume with the Devastating Wounds is kind of cool. I dig that. I dig that weapon. And then Twin Heavy Gauze has lethal hits. It's Twin Link, so it's re-rolling wounds. Strength 8, AP 2, 2 damage with the 24-inch range. If I'm running a Triarch, that's probably the gun I'm taking, just simply because of the Twin Link. The Devastating Wounds is nice, but it's only 1 damage. The Melta damage is good, and in an army that is definitely looking for some anti-tank and anti-vehicle, anti-big stuff in different columns, I don't feel like investing the 125 points behind this model being my anti-tank is where it's at. I would prefer going into the lethal hits twin linked option for the damage, the reroll wounds. It's strength 8. It's a strong gun. It's a strong gun. Now, he does actually have a combat profile. He gets 4 attacks, weapon skill 3, strength 7, AP 1, 1 damage. So he can stomp the yard. He can stomp the yard a bit. Not too bad. Not too bad. I don't feel like I feel like with the Triarchs, they lack a lot of identity for what they're supposed to be doing. Now, they're kind of like they're the assistant to the overlord in this case, and that's kind of what that's kind of the feeling I've always gotten with them. And while they are kind of he is assisting, he's knocking away cover, and with everything having much easier access to cover, that could be a big deal. But when we look at a vehicle that 1 doesn't transport, 2 doesn't really take down other vehicles well, and then we look at that third ability, the third ability is missable for 125 points. That's in my opinion. I prefer that big vehicle, that big heavy hitter, to at least be able to take out another heavy hitter, maybe, or just do a little bit of damage, at least reliable damage. All right, moving over to Canoptic Spiders. Canoptic Spiders are vehicles, so they fit into this. They are 6 wounds still, but a toughness 7 and a 3-up save. So Spiders, one thing that you lost is now you can only take them in squads of 1 or 2, so maximum 2. 75 points apiece, so they come in at 150 points for the 2 of them. Little pricey. Particle Beamer, they get 2 of these, and it is a blast weapon now, so you get additional shot for 5. Blast, strength 6, AP 0, 1 damage, D6 shots, devastating wounds. Okay, I like this on a unit that does something else, typically. You have the choice with this in its war gear of any number of them can have the 2 particle beamers, which you'll probably take. Any number of them can have the fabricator claw. Okay, any number of them can have the gloom prism. So really no reason to not take those things. So as we talk about the rest of the war gear on it, it's basically assumed there's really no reason to not take all those things, since everything, I mean, you get it all for free, theoretically. So now we have the Autonomous Claw, so it's close combat, hitting on 4s. Huh, that's interesting. Okay, so this is a Canoptic unit, but its gun hits on a 3. So if you have the count as vehicle or count as character buff nearby, he could actually hit on 2s. That's pretty cool. I didn't even notice that till just now. His weapon skill is a 4-up though. Strength 8, negative 2, 2 damage. So still a solid amount of attacks. Not quite the crazy amount that I was able to put, which it was like 11 attacks per spider that I was doing in a 3-man squad with failsafe overcharge. But hey, it's still good. All right, over to its abilities. So one thing that has changed with this is the way that he resurrects scarabs. Canoptic Swarm. In your command phase, select 1 friendly Canoptic Scarab unit within 6 of this unit. 1 destroyed model is returned to the Canoptic Scarab squad for each spider model in this unit. So, Scarabs are 4 wounds. I had to double check that. With only a 6-up save. They're going to die. What I want to see is the attrition of 6 Scarabs with the spiders. And until I can get them on the table, I can't really judge what that attrition value is. with the scarabs dropping from 9 to 6 and the spiders dropping from 3 to 2, I'm a little concerned. A little concerned that it's going to be too small and squishy to run that combo. I do still like the scarabs. The 9 is still OC. But to run this as a combo might be a little bit rough. Now, with that being said, the spider does come with some other stuff. So, and I think the time that the spider is really going to shine is when there's a more prevalent psychic meta. When we see more psychic damage specifically, that's higher up in the meta. Whether it's Thousand Suns or Grey Knights do make the run that like they seem like they're able to. And that's with the Gloom Prism. Gloom Prism is an aura, while friendly Necron units are within 6 inches of the bearer's model in the unit. Models in the unit have Feel No Pain for Us ability against psychic attacks. That's nice. That's really strong. And then last but surely not least, while this is also an aura, while a friendly Necron's vehicle unit's within 6 inches of this unit, it has a 6-up Feel No Pain. So when we're talking about the less support, less character builds and running more of all the other units in the spread, this is one that can do well. Your Annihilation Barges being able to have a 6-up Feel No Pain. Doomstalkers having a 6-up Feel No Pain. Monolith having a 6-up Feel No Pain. Tezzeret Vault. These are all things that can get a Feel No Pain. So there is a little bit extra that this guy brings to the table to be able to see with the scarabs. Now the question is the scarab thing going to be worth it? Or are we looking at single spiders that just kind of float around by those vehicles to be able to give the 6-up Feel No Pain and stuff like that? That's one that I want to get on the table, test, and see how all this stuff resolves. All right, moving on by the Treyarch Praetorians. Sorry, guys. One day we'll see you back on the table. A personal favorite of mine, the Annihilation Barge. All right, so I do think the Annihilation Barge is pretty good. First of all, let's look at it what we're buying for its points. 115 points, very cheap, very cheap. 9 wounds, toughness 8, and the guns on it pretty stagnant. You can either take a Gauss cannon or Tesla cannon underneath it, and then you get the twin Tesla destructor. Gauss cannon, lethal hits, 3 shots, hitting on 3s. All of its profile hits on 3s. Strength 5, AP 2 damage for the Gauss with lethal hits. Tesla, sustain 2 on this guy. So looking at 2 additional hit for 6s. 4 shots, strength 6, AP 1 damage. And then the twin Tesla destructor. So this is also sustained hits 2. It is twin linked. So it's re-rolling wounds. I like that. I like that a lot. Strength 8, AP 2 damage. Its special ability is cute. Cute, to say the least. In the shooting phase, each time you select a target for this model's Tesla weapon, roll 1d6 for the target. So you do this. Okay, hold on. So that's one thing I kind of missed on this. So in the shooting phase, each time you select a target for its twin Tesla destructor, roll a d6. So you do this before you even resolve the damage from this thing. So the first thing you're doing is actually going to do this ability for mortal wounds. In your shooting phase, each time you select a target for this model's we roll a d6 for the target unit and a d6 for every other unit within 3 inches of the target. On a 5-up, the unit being rolled for is struck with an arc, and after resolving this model's attack, so it covers it in there. After resolving the model's attack, the target unit, each unit struck by the arcing energy suffers d3. Okay, so now I see why they worded it that way. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to say, I'm going to shoot at squad X. And then you look at squad X and you measure off of squad X to see if there are any units within 3 inches. And then you roll those dice as well as the unit you're hitting. Any of those squads that you roll a 5 for, after you're done shooting, they then take d3 mortal wounds. The reason they did that this way is because it'd be very easy for your opponent to remove models, and now you're not within 3 inches of other units. So this way the ability actually works. The issue is it's only a 3-inch arc. So there's still going to be a lot of times the target you want to hit may not exactly get that. But it's Tesla Destructor as it is, the flying base. Like, one of the things I love with it in previous editions is the size. The size of the model is able to fit into a lot of areas really nicely. It still has a 4-up invuln. excuse me, sorry, it makes it tanky. Still got that 4-up involved. So it, in 115 points, it's not bad. Not bad. Again, if you're running a vehicle, straight up vehicle build, I would definitely consider running 2 of those to kind of fill your infantry column, your cheap throwaway guys. Those are a good one for it because their damage is still comparable. All right, so here is one that brings me a personal sad face. The reason that this Doomsday arc makes me sad is because I literally own 0. I own 0 of them because every time I start to look at them and go, oh, I should get these, they're terrible. Because of the fact that they have to sit still in order to fire their main gun. For me, I still am hesitant to use them. For one reason and one reason only, I don't like how big they are. I don't like how long they are. I don't like how much room they take up. And I also don't like the fact that they kind of look like a shoe to me. Like, I really, when I look at this model, I see that, like, it looks like a shoe with the way the arcs go underneath. The one that I did own at one point, I still put the things up and then put the gun down the middle because I like the arc look of it more so. So I'm not a big fan of the way the model looks. I feel like it looks like a shoe. But, I mean, this shoe kicks. So first of all, 14 wounds, toughness 9, and a 3-up save. And the one thing, there is one other thing to it. This guy, you're definitely paying for him. The Doomsday arc is 185 points. So we're getting close to the 200 point option. Pound for pound, he's worth every single point. I mean, pound for pound, he's worth every single point. My prejudice against the shoe and my prejudice against the fact of the size of the model, I can't argue with the fact of how viable this thing actually is and how brutal this is. So, again, 14 wounds, toughness 9. We're looking at it has gauze flares. So much like the Ghost Arc, this has a rapid fire 5, lethal hits. So if you get within 12 inches, you're looking at 10 shots off this. And is it 2? 2 gauze flare rays? 2 gauze flare ray. So at 24 inches, you're getting 10 shots because it's 5 shots apiece. At 12 inches, you're getting 20 shots because rapid fire. So now you're double tapping. Lethal hits, cool. Strength 4, AP 0, 1 damage, 3s to hit, 3s to hit across the board. Until we get over to the Doomsday Cannon, which if you guys seen one of my previous videos, I rolled out some dice to see how this thing looks, and oh my, it's insane. This thing is brutal. All right, so first of all, the Doomsday Cannon is blast. So if it does shoot at infantry, it gets +1 for 5 or more, and then +1 every 5. And it's heavy. So heavy, now the cool thing is with this is the heavy needs to stay stationary to get the heavy effect. However, if you have a character with the Sovereign nearby, you can get the 2-up for having that character right there with command protocols. But so the fact that you can move it and still shoot at the high damage profile that we're seeing is great. That makes it, playable. The fact that it had to sit still to shoot its good anti-tank profile before was what made it rough, because you're purchasing this thing in your army to be an anti-tank, but then it's a coin toss, and if you go first or second, and if you go second and your opponent has the tools to remove it, there goes your anti-tank and there goes all your points, because there's no flexibility behind it. If you hide it and move it out, now you're shooting at a lower profile and your opponent gets to hit you harder than you can hit them initially. With this, at least now you can stay on the move. Your gun is a strength 15, -4, and flat 4 damage, which again is a super improvement. D6 +1 shots, huge improvement. So at least you're getting a minimal of 2 shots when shooting at a vehicle, and you're not having random damage. You're doing 4. When you hit, you're doing 4. I'll take that any day of the week. Overwhelming obliteration. In your movement phase, if the model remains stationary until the end of the turn, its Doomsday Cannon has the Devastating Wounds ability. Boom. That's big. You hit, you wound, you get that devastating wound. Now you're just doing flat 4 mortal wounds to something. Very nice. Not a reliable devastating wound agent, like where we see some stuff that has the ability to give you a crit on a better roll or re-rolls into it. It's kind of a luck shot into it, but when it hits, it hits. And at the same time, too, you're still a strength 15. So most stuff you're going to be wounding on 3s. So it's a good, very, very good, very, very solid gun on a solid platform. everything about this thing has just solid weapons, and it has its anti-infantry with the gauze flare array. It's great. If you can get past the fact that it looks like a shoe, and some people who maybe have better ideas and concepts on maneuverability with it, also great. It's great. That is probably, until we get over to the Tesseract Vault, I would say. Tesseract Vault is probably the only other one that could argue with it as strong tank removal, I guess. That one, it's just so good. It's just so good. I obviously won't be running them because I don't have them. And I'm not sure I necessarily am going to go after and invest in them right now because, again, I don't like their maneuverability that they lack. They cover a lot of the field just with their length, and I don't like how that is. I think they'll be very difficult to hide, and some armies that could pick them up easily will pick them up easy. And that's at least my first impression. If you have 3 of them, by all means, get a character with a sovereign, get them on the table, and I bet you there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be very scared of those things. They're super strong, super strong. All right, Canoptic Doomstalker. Yep. So, speaking of things that I do own 3 of, 3 Canoptic Doomstalkers. They're primed, and they're going, for me right now, they might be going back on the shelf. I have considered running them into the next army because of the fact of having a Canoptic control node, and also possibly running the Sovereign with other things. These guys are Canoptic units, which means that, again, he has a ballistic skill and weapon skill 4. Now, he comes with a 4-up invuln, toughness 8, 12 wounds, fair stat line. The one thing that I like about him, first of all, is that he is a $125. He is 125 points. So he's, like, again, relatively cheap in comparison to some other stuff that we're seeing. The Doomsday Blaster is a blast weapon with heavy. So if you don't have the Canoptic and you sit still, you can get your 3s to hit over that. 48-inch range, so shorter than the Doomsday Arc. D6 plus 1, same there. Strength 14, so loses 1 point of strength. AP 3, loses 1 point of AP. And 3 damage, loses 1 point of damage. Then it has the twin gauze flares, which have lethal hits, rapid fire of 1. It's only 1 shot, twin length. This is not the weapon you're taking it for. Okay, cool, it does that. And then Doomstalker limbs, the dude can stomp for strength 6, AP 0, 1 damage. His special ability is the Sentinel Construct. Oh yeah, twin. Yeah, I guess that's true. It's twin gauze flare, so it's not even 2. Sentinel Construct. Each time you target this unit with Fire Overwatch stratagem, when resolving that stratagem, hits are scored on an unmodified roll of 5 up. So, seeing 20-man units and seeing the fact that a lot of units still cap out at close to like 20 guys means that the blast effect of it, you can get additional 4 shots. So you're looking at a maximum of like 11 shots on this thing. Unmodified, so you get 5s to Overwatch. I mean, it's a mild improvement, but is that really where you're going to want to spend that 1 command point on? Is that the thing that you're going to want to Overwatch with when you have other things like maybe Death Marks, Immortals, Necron Warriors, other things like that? Are you really going to want to spend the command points on this to let it fire Overwatch? I wish it would have had something more like the Death Mark has, where it can just, you can use this ability 1 time and do the Overwatch strat for 0. Then I think it's like, okay, then you'd see this thing Overwatching. It is very, very, very tall. Surprised it doesn't have towering just because how tall it is, because it's a taller model, not as tall as an Imperial Knight. So when you compare this thing to the Doomsday Arc, 2 things that you go with. 1, okay, points. Doomstalker is cheaper. Okay, point for the Doomstalker. The Doomsday Arc is inherently more accurate, being able to get all the way up to a 2-up ballistic skill, where the Doomstalker is only going to get up to a 3, or 3s to hit, I should say, for +1. The damage output, the Doomsday Arc has the higher damage output, just hand over hand. The devastating, like, if both of them are not assuming that they both are able to sit still, the Doomsday Arc is going to do more damage because of the devastating wounds, as well as the fact that it does 4 wounds flat, just for the damage aspect. The 1 point of strength I don't think really matters, just because of like double strength, double this, double that. So if your toughness is 7, I wound you on 2s. With the Doomstalker, I wound you on 2s with the Doomsday Arc. If your toughness is an 8, both weapons once again are going to wound you on. Or still, if your toughness is an 8, I'm still wounding you on 3s with both weapons now. So it's not going to matter until you get up to toughness 14, toughness 15. So I don't think that 1 point of damage of strength really matters. The point of AP, 2 ups to a 5 up. So the point of AP could be relevant in some situations. I mean, a 5 up's better than a 6 up, hands down. Now, what I do like about these guys is, 1, their base size. They do have a larger base, but it's not as big as the Doomsday Arc. So these guys are a little bit easier to hide. Not to mention coming in for 125 points. When you look at both the models and say, okay, but what happens when these are on the move? Well, when both are on the move, you can still get the 2 ups to hit with the Doomsday Arc, where these guys will only have 3s to hit, but points, how the cost initially with it. So these guys, I kind of want to try them out, just because of seeing how difficult some vehicles might be to take out. If these guys are tough enough to stand up for a couple of turns, they could help me in that damage category so other weapons can take over. And I have them, and I've just been waiting to play them, and they just have not seen the light of day. And at least with this, we kind of sort of have some points and rules that might actually work. So those guys might be able to give them a try, but I might give them a try, but they're not on my painting list right now. They're really not. The Ghost Arc. So the Ghost Arc, and I do know, I looked at its points. Its points are very, very surprising at only 125 points. And when I say only 125 points, there's a lot of cool things this thing does, but there's one thing it doesn't do, and it really makes me angry. Honestly, like, I can understand where I can understand where units get nerfed. I can understand that some, the balance of the game and all that stuff. And I think that for the most part, when I review armies and talk about lists, I tend to be very, very fair. I have absolutely no idea and no understanding on why this thing doesn't have a firing deck. It is literally wide open. You literally see the Necron warriors. Yes, they're standing like this and like they're plugged in or something like that. You see the warriors right there. How is this not a firing deck? How does this not have firing deck? It just boggles my mind. Now, it's still good and still playable, but man, charge me 10, 20 points more and give it a firing deck. It should be firing deck 10 so the 10 warriors can shoot out of it. All right, so speaking of the transport capacity, that did get an upgrade. That did get a very nice upgrade. So the Ghost Arc now can carry 10 warriors and 1 infantry character. So I'm thinking for this, a Plasma Lancer with 10 warriors to jump out and have the critical hit boost to the warriors as they get out, and that forward objective control value. And the Plasma Lancer has a cool little living lightning ability, which is pretty sweet to zap some extra guys, especially in the larger squads and horde matchup. So this guy's got the Gauze Flare array, which is the same as the Doomsday Arc, 5 shots apiece. It's got 2 of them, so it's got 10 shots. Rapid fire, so at 12 inches, we're looking at 20 shots. Ballistic skill 3 with strength 4, AP 0, and 1 damage. Also, it does have lethal hits. And again, as we said a million times, the Sovereign does affect this. What are you getting out of this guy for the reanimations, though? Because that's what this thing does. It's a repair barge, and that's in the namesake. So once per phase. Key there, once per phase. So shooting, combat, or any other, or charge phase, even if mortal wounds get done to you in the charge phase. Once per phase, just after an enemy unit finishes making its attack, if one or more friendly Necron warrior units, specifically Necron warrior, is within 3 inches of this model lost 1 or more wound as a result of this attack, those models can use this ability. If it does select 1 Necron warrior unit, that unit's reanimation protocol activates, the same Necron Warriors unit cannot be selected for the ability more than once. So, to condense it down a little bit, after you get, once per phase, just having unit finishes making its attacks. So you have to do it after the moment after you get hit. So kind of like old school reanimation protocols, we're doing that again. Once you get hit, you say, okay, I'm going to use this repair barge to target this squad of Necron Warriors, and then you just reanimate, do a reanimation protocol roll. The fact they can only be affected by this ability once means that you can do another Ghost Arc to another unit, but since it's the repair barge ability, you can still spend the stratagem then to resurrect guys off the Undying Legion. So the Ghost Arc allows you to layer more reanimations on top of it, and as we saw with the Canoptic Reanimator, you could also have additional D3. So you would be investing a lot of points behind doing this. But if you had a Ghost Arc, a Canoptic Reanimator, an Overlord, or a Catacomb Command Barge with a Resurrection Orb, you could resurrect over the course of one turn. You can resurrect in your command phase. Then in your opponent's turn, you could resurrect in the you have a Necron Warrior squad and one Ghost Arc and one Reanimator and one Orb. You resurrect in your opponent's command phase for the Orb for your D6 or D3 plus 3, and then another D3 for the Reanimator. Then you have the the Ghost Arc, which will give you a D3 plus 3 plus additional D3 for the Reanimator. Then you have the Stratagem that you can proc. So now you have another D3 plus 3, and then the extra D3 for the Reanimator. And then you move to the fight phase, we'll do it all again. So with those things, as long as your opponent can't one-shot a Warrior squad, you can basically just soak it up and throw it right back in there. The downside to it is, if someone goes after your Ghost Arc and they have the anti-tank, and they go after your Reanimator, which is susceptible to artillery, the Reanimator, not the Ghost Arc. You lose those things, then you take out the Warrior. So turn 1 Reanimator, turn 2 Ghost Arc after hitting it a little in turn 1, turn 3 Warriors, clear. So that's the only thing with it, with the point investments going into it. Now, with that being said, that sounds like an easy play, but you still got to execute it. The artillery still got to hit, make it happen, and take out the Reanimator. And if you have 2 Reanimators, well, that's going to be even tougher. And then the Ghost Arc's no slouch. Toughness 9, 14 wounds, and a 4-up save. He's a tough one to take down. One thing I didn't mention with the Reanimator as well, they gave the Reanimator a little bit of I think I did mention it. They gave the Reanimator a little bit extra buff with the 4-up Feel No Pain. So it makes it a little bit more difficult for them to take down. And now we're going into the planes. So first, the Doom Scythe. Toughness 9, 12 wounds. This is an aircraft, so it is not allowed to hover, so it will only be allowed to fly on, so it'll have to start in reserve. It has Twin Tesla Destructor, same as the Annihilation Barge. Oh, no, it's not. Strength 7. Ooh, Annihilation Barge is a little bit better. Well, Strength 8. Strength 7. That does matter. Yeah, there's some T4 things. So the Strength 8 actually matters in that. Strength 7, AP 0, 2 damage. I like that it's 2 damage. 6 attacks, sustained hits 2, and Twin Link, so rerolling the failed wounds. That's cool. I like that on the Destructors. And then it's the Heavy Death Ray. Heavy Death Ray is sustained hits D3 for 3 shots. So every time, this thing's going to be a lot of dice. So every time you hit with a 6, then you roll a D3 for each of those hits and get D3 more shots. It has a ballistic skill of 3+, strength 16, AP -4, ouch, D6 plus 1 damage. So, this thing can hit. This thing can hit very hard. Now let's go over to its ability. Okay. Now this guy, I read him before. And I think I read him very early on, so now this is a kind of getting impression. And as I'm starting to read this, I'm actually really starting to like this more and more. We'll talk about why in a second. So its ability. Each time this model targets an enemy infantry unit With its heavy death ray, your opponent must declare if it will stand firm or duck for cover. If it stands firm, when resolving attacks against this unit with a weapon this phase, a successful unmodified hit of 5+ scores a critical hit. If they duck for cover until the start of your next shooting phase, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, subtract 1 from the hit roll. Okay, so I pick your Land Raider, and you, Land Raider, is full health. So you would probably say that it will... there's a lot of things in the game that remove the negative modifier. So I don't like the fact that 50% of this ability, you can look at your opponent and go, oh, you're giving me a negative modifier. Okay, I'll choose the negative modifier, and now my unit ignores it. So that getting that 5 crit, because you're taking away, if your opponent stands firm, they don't want the -1 to hit. I feel like it's some vehicle. I feel like more times than not, your opponent's going to take the -1 to hit penalty because a lot of things ignore it. So you probably won't see that 5 crit that often. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that one's kind of a little bit of jank in there. But its gun is pretty nasty for the 3 solid shots. Strength 16, -4, D6 +1. Ability leaves me a little bit to desire. Let's see, what does this thing cost? So, because that also is going to be a big part of how much does this thing cost to put on the field. Oh, 225 points. Okay, so moving on to the next unit right there. I'm sorry, I can't spend 225 points on that. Moving on to the next unit, we're going to go into the Night Scythe. The Night Scythe is only 145 points. Okay, that's a little bit better over the 225. Whew, that's so much. We have the Twin Tesla Destructor again, strength 7, AP 0, 2 damage, all the same profile from before. I like that. What this is, you're bringing this for is the fact that it's a transport. Now, there's 2 things I like about this thing with the transport, and I really do like this, and I think this is very good, and I have been considering this for a while in some builds. Number 1, its transport capacity is 1 Necron infantry unit. So it doesn't matter. You take a 20-man, put all the characters on it, it's 24 models, 24 models. And this thing can go in the transport. It does not matter what it is. It says 1 Necron infantry squad. Doesn't matter what type. Doesn't matter what size. Just infantry, Necron, boom. Put it in the transport. As far as its ability is concerned, now this thing is also a toughness 9 and 12 wounds. So that's the durability we're looking at. It is a flyer. It would have the deep strike. Again, to start the game. At the end of the fight phase, if there are no models currently embarked within the transport, you can select 1 friendly Necron infantry unit that is wholly within 6 inches of transport. Unless that unit is within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units, it can embark within this transport. So, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I'm going to look this up later. I don't think there's any restrictions now for transports and having to have units in transports. I think we can take them empty now again. I think that's all okay. So you take this thing empty, you deep strike it in, and you land by a unit that just veiled, that just is maybe in the backfield or something like that, keep protected, and this guy can pick him up, and then next turn move and disembark that unit. Again, you wouldn't be able to charge out of it, but we do have some nasty guns like Immortals and stuff like that. I like this a lot. I think there's a lot of play behind it. I just haven't figured out exactly what plays I want to make with it yet. I like the Night Scythe. I think the Night Scythe is valuable. I think there's a lot of value behind it. All right, so now we're moving on to the big boys. First, the Obelisk. He's weighing in at 22 wounds with a 2-up save and a toughness 14, coming equipped with 4 Tesla Spheres. Tesla Sphere has anti-fly. Anti-fly, this is a kicker, not anti-aircraft, it is anti-fly. So this is anything with the fly keyword. So Eldar Wave Serpents, jet bikes, Space Marines with jump pack. You got fly, you got problems. He is anti-fly 4-up. Sustained hits 2, 6 shots apiece, so that's 4 of them. So that's 24 shots coming off this thing. That 6s are going to give you 2 additional hits. Ballistic skill 3, strength 7, AP 0, 1 damage. So you only got the 1 damage on their Tesla. Gravic Pulse. At the start of your opponent's movement phase, you can select one enemy unit within 18 inches and visible to this model. It is towering, so that visible part isn't as much of a negative on it. Until the end of the phase, subtract 2 from the move characteristic of that models in that unit. Subtract 2 from the advance and charge rolls for models in that unit. In addition, if the unit can fly until the start of your next movement phase, roll a d6. Each time that unit ends any type of movement on a 4-up, they take d3 mortal wounds. That's actually usable now. It's still kind of a cute gimmick, but here's the first thing. First of all, at the start of 18 inches, you can target any unit to reduce its move by 2. So that's a big part there. Being able to slow down units, great value, great value. And then the fact that then it triggers into, oh, if you have fly, then when you move, we're doing more wounds to you. Okay, cool. That actually works. That functions. This thing can deep strike as well. So you can get it out of the way of your army, not having it on the field, and go, okay, now it's my turn. Plop, shoot. Doesn't have the cool, crazy, I'm going to fire a whole bunch of stuff weaponry that it did before. You can, again, sovereign this thing up to a 2-up to hit. And yeah, it's a big towering boy. All right. Now here's the question. How much does this cost? Because I like what I see. Looks good, but $325. Would I spend $325 on this? Probably not. Probably not, because of the fact that it doesn't answer its counterpart of vehicles well. But I don't think it is like what it was before, where it was like the absolute worst data sheet. It made no sense and it was terrible for the most part for most of the edition. Even when it got core, it still wasn't really doing that well. I remember there was a time where there was like double obelisk, triple monolith list that was very, very cool. I ran it, very, very pushy, very nice list. But yeah, I don't think that it's playable. It is playable for its points, but I don't think initially I would run it competitively, just because it doesn't answer what answers it. And there's not a lot of things in Necrons elsewise. I mean, Destroyers do in that sense, that really go into it. Even if you're going into an all vehicle build, you're still spending a lot into the vehicles that I just don't feel like it does enough damage all around the board to be able to really justify it, especially when you have things like your Doomsday Arc and your Ghost Arcs that have the Gauze Flares that can do considerable amounts of damage right there, and both of which are having AP 0. So, oh, he does have a combat profile, 6 attacks at strength 8. Okay, that's cool. The Tesseract Vault. Tesseract Vault is this monstrosity that I hope I actually want this thing to not be competitive, just because this thing looks like I don't even want to imagine transport. I know there was a team a couple years back that took a triple vault list on a plane, and it's just braver men than me. Braver men than me. All right, so this model we're talking about comes in at 425 points. So 100 more points than the Obelisk. 24 wounds, toughness 12 with a 4-up invuln. The Obelisk did not have an invuln, so that's a big upgrade there. This is a Catan in all aspects of it. It does have Catan powers. So first of all, it's got the Tesla spheres, which we already talked about before. Same weapon, same ability. Then you have the powers of the Cetan as its stats. So in your shooting phase, when the model is selected to shoot, first select one of the Catan powers. Until the end of the phase, this model is equipped with that weapon in addition to its other weapons. So, though that's it for its ability. Nothing else really special into that. Kind of a bummer that something that's 425 points only has one ability. So let's look at these guns and see if these are worth it for 425 points. So you have all three of these. You just pick which one you want to use. First, you have Antimatter Meteor, Blast, Devastating Wounds, Indirect Fire. Cool. This can hit things that you might not be able to see, so that's nice. 24-inch range. I mean, with it being towering, I don't think there's very much you're not going to be able to see, per se. So the indirect might be kind of redundant. Devastating wounds, cool. D6 plus 3 shots. Blast, okay, cool. So that it does have blast, so it can get up there. Ballistic skill 3. Again, sovereign for a 2. Strength 10, -3, 3 damage. Okay, so that is solid for picking up some infantry, some tougher infantry. Some Terminators would really not like getting hit by that thing. Moving over to Cosmic Fire. Ignore cover, torrent, devastating wounds. Okay, cool. So both of these have all 3 of the weapons have devastating wounds. That's a good start. So with 6s to do devastating wounds. Ignore cover. Okay. 18-inch range, so significantly shorter, but 3d6 shots, strength 6, AP2, only 1 damage. It doesn't have blast. This is the type of weapon you'd want to go against 1 wound models with, maybe Necrons in the mirror match. But it doesn't seem. I'm not a big. I don't necessarily. I can't really think of very many targets you'd want to use that on over antimatter meteor. Yes, 3d6 shots could potentially be 18 shots, but how often are you going to roll that trip 6 on it? Where the antimatter meteor is, at least if you think of it as like the antimatter meteor is like 2d6 shots, and one of them is already a 3. Plus you have blast. Most units are going to be 5 models as it is, so that 3 is going to become a 4. That's a solid number of shots. So I kind of, now it is torrent, so it automatically hits. I get that. But 1 damage versus 3 damage, AP2 versus AP3, strength 10 versus strength 6. I'm thinking the antimatter meteor is going to be the better one. Then the last is anti-times arrow. Okay, so this one is, I did remember reading this one. This one is just kind of an offset, and it's good because it does something completely different. It's anti-character and precision. It's anti-character 4+. So when you hit a unit with this thing, oh wow, when you hit a unit with this weapon, you are, it's gonna wreck. It's ballistic skill 2, so you don't even need a sovereign this. It's only 1 shot, 24-inch range. Strength 3 normally, okay, anti-character 4 up, -2 d6 wounds. So this thing literally could just go 6, boom, 6 mortal wounds to a character right away. That's, I mean, I like that. I like that. I like that it's got that random effect. It still has a Tesla. 6 attacks in combat, weapon skill 4, strength 8, AP 0, 1 damage. 4 up invuln, 425 points. I don't know. Give it a try. Let me know. My vote is going to be no. My vote is no. This thing right now, that's not that competitive. 24 wounds is nice. Toughness 12 is nice. 4 up invuln is awesome. Very difficult to take down. But and not easy to bog down as well too, because it's towering. So it can do a lot of damage. You have to get it down to 8 wounds. I don't know. Maybe that thing actually could do it. I mean, it could potentially do it. I definitely think Cosmic Fire is a waste. That Cosmic Fire is a waste. Antimatter Meteor for days. Yeah, it doesn't ignore cover, but AP3. I mean, AP3, then if you have cover, it's like AP2. So everything else is still better. I mean, it can hit. It definitely can hit. Yeah. I give it my thumbs. I'll give it a thumbs up. Looks good. I'd still would like to try to avoid running one, just because I'd like to try to avoid having to transport one in a car for hours or put it on a plane. That would really like to avoid it. All right, so now we get over to the monolith. Now, we saw the monolith already, but now we've seen other data sheets and other stuff. So now it's time to look at the monolith and go, what is this thing doing now? 20 wounds, toughness 14. Ooh, is he tougher? Is he tougher? He is tougher. Well, how about that? The monolith is tougher than the Tesseract Bolt. 2 up save. Okay, both of them have a 2 up save. I'm about to say, like, this thing just all around tougher, kind of. 20 wounds, 2 up save, leadership 7, objective control value 8. I didn't even look at that. Yeah, they're both objective control value 8. Sorry, I'm looking at these things and trying to make a decision on these bigger, bulkier ones. Because now, especially with us not having as much restrictions, I mean, you could just throw down 3 monoliths, and that could be the beginning core of your army, and almost like an Imperial Knights for Necron way. So the monolith, it is also towering. Cool. It has fly. Yay! It doesn't get completely trapped behind walls. Only is a 7-inch move, so it's still going to be a little rough, but hey, at least it has fly. It also has towering, so true line of sight. You get 2 choice weapons on it, and then the particle whip. So let's look at its ability first before we jump over into its weapons, because this is one that I'm really trying to figure out, because I have 3, and I'd love to put them on the table. All right, so Eternity Gate. In the reinforcement step of your movement phase, you can select 1 Necron infantry unit from your army that is either in reserves or on the battlefield. Okay. If you select the latter, remove that unit from the battlefield and place it into reserve. That unit is set up anywhere on the battlefield that is wholly within 6 inches of this model and not within engagement range of an enemy unit. That unit can't declare a charge this turn. The monolith has deep strike. Okay, so literally from what I'm reading, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I don't think I am, in the reinforcement step of your movement phase. So you deep strike in the reinforcement step. So you place this model down as the deep strike. Then you activate the Eternity Gate because you're still in the reinforcement step. You select an infantry unit on the table and bring it out wholly within 6 inches of this thing. So this literally, you have a 3-inch. Oh, that unit cannot declare charge this turn. Okay. So that's at least safe, because I was thinking it was going to be pretty brutal and broken. So you can't, but you can bring stuff over to kind of protect it. You could bring any Necron infantry unit over to kind of shield it, maybe wall it a bit so that it doesn't get charged, or just have extra firepower over there. So not bad. Not bad, especially because we're relatively slow moving, so it can pick it up and bring it over there. All right. Before I look at the guns, I want to double check the points on this thing and see what we're talking about here for the monolith. Monolith is 385, so just under 400 points. That's going to be a tough sell for me. Same as like the Tesseract Vault. That 425 is still kind of a tough sell for me, especially because just how much other stuff costs when you start putting characters in and that. All right, so we got the Death Ray. Sustained hits D3, cool. And now they don't have 4 Death Rays, so its attack is 1, so you get 4 shots off this thing entirely because it has 4 of them. Ballistic skill 3, again, sovereign. Strength 12, AP 4, D6 plus 1 damage. Okay, that's a good anti-tank weapon. A good amount of damage, good amount of shots, possibly extra shots with the sustained hits. Okay, cool. Gauss Flux Arc, 3 shots, so 4 rounds of it, so you'll have 12. Rapid Fire 3. So if it's in 12 inches, you get that extra shots right there. Okay. Lethal hits, nice. Ballistic skill 3, strength 6, AP 1 damage. It's okay. I like the Death Rays a little more, especially considering that they're free. And then the Particle Whip, D6 or 3d6 shots. Ooh, 3d6, nice. Strength 8, AP 1, only 2 damage though. In combat, it's got a weapon skill 2. Cool. I love the fact that a pyramid can fight. Strength 8, AP 2, 3 damage. All around, it's got a great profile. Much better than we've seen in the previous edition. Much more playable. Much more value out of this thing. It's got play, but I think you're going to have to reduce down a lot of I almost feel like this is a model you would have to build around. You would be building around the monolith. You would take it, maybe 2, and then everything else you would look at for it. And you would be taking units, maybe you put your whole force on the table and you have the monoliths that can deep strike in, and then they just start funneling units into your opponent and just kind of like almost like a clog the gear type scenario into it. It's going to pull away from some of your reanimations, but again, things like warriors have inherently good reanimations. Overlords, lords even, and lords are only 50 points, so you tack that on there with a res orb, that can help. So I think I think monolith build is a thing, but it is a monolith build. It's start with monolith and then just start flinging guys and gum up the networks as you go, and then maybe you have some fast other units that can kind of do some work in the backfield as well. And when I know, yes, you can't charge, but still being able to shoot and clear stuff up and make them have to dedicate to you, it can actually make it efficient. All right, Zarek himself, the Silent King. So, Silent King has changed quite a bit. So, first of all, the Silent King comes in at 470 points, so 30 points less than that, 30 points down from 500. And what are we getting for 470 points? We have a toughness 10, a 2-up save. That's a up because he was for a 2-up save. That's better. 16 wounds for him, 5 for the rock. I was been fighting that yawn for a minute here. Sorry, hopefully I didn't make anyone else yawn there. You have 2 of the rocks, so 5 wounds apiece for them. So a lot of that, all that actually stayed the same. He's objective control 6. His rocks are only objective control 1, so he'd be a combined total of objective control 7. He has reanimation protocols. You can resurrect the rocks now. So if one of the rocks is dead and the other one's at full wounds, when you roll reanimation and you get a 1, put a rock back with 1 wound remaining. I mean, it now is official. You can resurrect the rocks. However, he has a lot. His entire operations has changed. How he functions and everything is completely different. So that's gonna also come in here in this effect. So he doesn't have the depreciation thing anymore, where if he depreciates, then you start losing some abilities for him. I'm not seeing that anywhere on here. And he doesn't even depreciate down until he's 6 wounds, where he gets the -1 to hit rolls. All right, so Voice of the Triarch. At the start of the battle round, select 1 Triarch ability to the left. Until the start of the next battle round, this ability is in effect. Okay, so you're doing this at the beginning of the battle round, not the beginning of the player turn. So your opponent will know what you have if you are going second and the other way. So let's keep that in mind when we look at the abilities. Then he has the Silent King. Once per turn, at the end of your command phase, you can select 1 friendly Battle Shock Necrons unit within 12, and it's no longer Battle Shock. Okay, cool ability, but we need to see more on how much that Battle Shock is going to be able to affect, where during his command, at the end of the command phase, he just picks one and says, nope, you're good, get up off your butt, get to work. So weapons-wise, Annihilator Beam, Strength 14, -4, D6 damage. Boom. The rocks can still shoot. 1 attack apiece. You got 2 rocks. You got 2 shots. Scepter of Eternal Glory, 2 attacks. Oh, that's a lot less. Oh, okay, I see why. 2 attacks. Weapons Ballistic Skill 2. Strength 10, -3, flat 3 damage. Okay, that's cool. That's a little more anti-tank than he had before. Yeah. Yeah, it's a little more anti-big stuff than he had before with some of the spray and pray. And then he has the Staff of Stars, which Staff of Stars now has indirect fire. That's awesome. 12 attacks. Nice. Ballistic skill 2+, 6 strength 6, AP 1 damage. Okay, so all around his shooting profile is magnificent. I got nothing bad to say about that. Then in close combat, he has 1 attack with a weapon skill 4, strength 4, AP 1 damage. Okay, but why? Sure. And then the Scythe of Dust, which has lethal hits, so 6 is to wound, will automatically wound. Strength 12 attacks, strength 8, AP 3, 2 damage, hitting on 2s. I like that. That's a good solid swinging profile. It does well into multiple things. He's not going to be able to fight really well against Imperial Knights. Imperial Knights will still kind of beat him up in combat, but you have some guns to be able to try and hit them and whittle them down, especially with that flat 6 damage coming in. But now we have the Triarch abilities. You haven't even looked at them, haven't even talked about them yet. So what do these do? Is this where my 470 points come in? This all, I'll give you like 350, 400. That's not bad. That's pretty good. 4-up invuln. What's this giving me? All right, so Variant of the Stars is a aura. While a friendly Necron unit is within 6 inches of the Zarek unit's Zarek model. Okay, so this is an important thing for it. This is very specific that you have to be within 6 of the Zarek model, so not the rocks. So the rocks do not conduct this aura, only the king himself. Each time a model in that unit makes a ranged attack, reroll hit rolls of 1 and reroll a wound roll of 1. Okay, cool. So reroll 1s on hits to wound and range. Awesome. While a Necron unit is within Variant Blades, while a Necron unit is within 6 of the Xeric model, you can reroll charge rolls made for that unit. Okay. And the last one, Bringer of Unity. While a friendly Necron unit is within 6 of this unit, you can ignore any and all modifiers to the characteristics of models in that unit and to any roll or test made for models in that unit, excluding modifiers to saving throw. So there are a couple armies that I've seen, Death Guard being one, that can modify characteristics pretty freely. So that would be a situational one, maybe early on to use. Again, beginning in the battle round, so at least you will have that in effect. Most of the time, I think Fairy of the Stars is probably the key winner with that, giving you reroll 1s to hit and reroll 1s to wound. I think you will. I think Xeric can see play on the table. I think it would be a very, again, a lot of these things with like these big vehicles, it's like, okay, some of these build, it's specific to the build. And he's going to do well into the armies that don't have a lot of characters because they're not going to be able to spend it, and using him to kind of do most of the heavy lifting, maybe from behind a wall, et cetera, et cetera. It's still a high risk, high reward. Not high risk, high reward per se, but he is expensive. He is almost in a 2,000 point list. He's nearly a quarter of your army, right there behind him. He is not towering. He's not towering, so don't have to deal with that. So he can still hide behind walls and stuff like that. Just have to watch with the bases. Only a 6-inch range and no real way to boost those auras kind of makes it a little rough. He's gonna have to get out there. He's gonna have to get out there and actually do some work. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how he plays. I'm thinking less characters, like warriors with no characters, immortals with no characters. Maybe a catacomb command barge would probably work well with him. Definitely not OP, not an auto include anymore, but not bad. Not bad. If you got Xeric and you're like, oh, he's not as good as he was before, that's true, but you can still play him and he's still usable. It's just different than how it is. It's not going to be completely game breaking. And you just, and I think that's how it should be. Like, these models should be functional, but you should still have to play the game. It shouldn't be, oh, I put this down and win. Convergence of Dominion. These guys make me sad. When this model first came out, I don't know why, I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the model and just was like, I want to have you. I want you in my collection. And I went and bought them. And then I started playing them, and we got into the first rule debacle on, since this is a fortification, fortifications cannot be set up within 3 inches of a piece of terrain. However, this is one of the only fortifications that could come off the table and land back on the table and do all that stuff. So there was question back and forth on, could it ignore that because now it's past that and this setup and blah, 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 but that doesn't matter anymore. So it was, in a sense, it could be something for engage on all fronts or behind enemy lines and stuff like that. And I was looking at some of the stuff and I was real excited. I was like, man, convergence, man, this will be cool. I wonder what it's going to do. How are we going to do this? So disappointed in every which way possible. So first of all, it is a toughness 11. Okay. It's got 10 wounds. Now, it's not 10 wounds for the unit because it's not technically a unit. Because when you purchase this, you are actually getting 3 Convergence of Dominion Star Stellies, however you pronounce that. I apologize. And when you deploy these things, each one of them has to be deployed within 12 inches of another model, but from that point, they're all separate. So what are you getting? First of all, you're getting a gun. This is a vehicle, and it is a fortification still. It has fortification subtext. 18-inch range, 3 shots, 4s to hit, strength 6, -2, 3 damage. Okay, so not a bad gun, but I mean, it's not what we're taking it for what you would think you would take it for. All right. First of all, reanimation nodes. It is an aura. While a friendly Necron unit is within 6 inches of this fortification, each time that unit's reanimation protocol is active, you can re-roll the dice when determining how many wounds you are reanimating. Meh. I mean, it's a D3. It's not a D6. Like Warriors D6. Okay, you're re-rolling the D6. That's pretty cool, but I mean, how long are you really going to want to stay in the backfield and stay around these things? And that's kind of a big problem with it. Like, if they could still move, then that'd be a thing. And spoiler alert, they don't teleport or move at all anymore. Ancient cover. Each time a ranged attack is allocated to a model, if that model is not fully visible to every model in the attacking unit, because of this fortification, that model gets benefit cover. Okay, so this is because of the fact that this is a unit in your army. It actually does have a direct rule that, hey, by the way, this does give cover each time a ranged attack is allocated to a model, if that model is not fully visible to every model in that attacking unit. So real easy to get cover. You know, you slap one model behind it, put the rest out in there. Cool, you get cover. While an enemy unit is only within engagement range of one or more fortifications from your army, so this is what happens with the fortification rule for it, that unit can still be selected as a target of a ranged attack, but each time such attack is made, unless it's made with a pistol, subtract 1 from the hit roll. So you can, so if you are in combat, the unit that's in combat with the convergence can still be shot at -1, except for pistols. Models in the unit do not need to test Desperate Escape test due to falling back while battle shocked, except for those that will move over enemy models when doing so. So basically saying this is a rock, this is a building, you can walk away. Now, the reanimation node, I'm kind of being cynical with it and saying, oh, it's not good for the reroll, it's not good for the reroll. And the real reason I look at that and say it is, first of all, you can't move them. That was the big deal of these things, is that a Cryptek would be nearby and target it, and it would teleport, and now it doesn't. So you're just deploying more terrain. Okay, fine. I'll start with that. I mean, yes, because now there's not really any rule against it. You could build a blockade that your opponent could technically not move through in your deployment zone or make it difficult on them. Okay, that's kind of cool, kind of neat, and I could get behind that. Re-rolling the reanimation is not terrible. Giving a benefit of cover, again, not terrible. How much does it cost? Now, last edition, this got all the way down to like 80 points. So what are you thinking? 100 points? 115 points? There's 3 of them in there, maybe 60 points apiece, maybe 180 points. You're trying to come in there a little steep? No. This comes in at a whopping 255 points for these 3 things. Games Workshop just does not want us to use fortifications. I can't even. It's so bad. It's so bad. It hurts my heart. It hurts my heart at how bad this is. Now, maybe when we get the book, maybe there will be something in there for a different detachment, that a detachment ability will interact with the convergence and make these things possibly decent, where at least they can move around the field and stuff like that. But right now, they're not that good. Yes, technically, from what I see right now, these could hold terrain. Yes, they're stretching out and stuff like that, but come on. Do you really want to spend 255 points on something that can't move across the field and do anything else? I mean, it's not. RIP convergence. RIP. I'll miss you guys. But hey, they're great looking terrain for my Necron table when we break that back out. All right, so now we have hit the end. We have hit the final point of the Necron data sheets and everything. Sorry I'm yawning a couple times. It's been a long weekend. And now it's still going to continue because we have one more thing left to do, and that is I need to figure out what I'm going to be bringing against Lane and his Death Watch. I think I'm going to pull the Necrons out and get them on the table, but it's a matter of what do I run in this sense. I got 1390. I didn't see any vehicles in there that popped out to me as like, ooh, I could run this with those things. I was considering the Doomsday Arc or the Doomstalker. I'm sorry, oh man, beating me up with it. The plane. I was considering the Doom Scythe. Almost there. So many dooms. All gloom and gloom. Let's run all three things that have doom in them: Doomsday Arc, Doom Scythe, and the Doom Stalker. Just have the army of doom. That's what I'll run. Nine man doom. I didn't really see anything that jumped out to me, so it's kind of going to be a matter of what to possibly see in the list. Um, and I mean, what maybe just to get on the table in that sense. So, still got a little bit to figure out with that and get that first army on the table, and yeah, then we'll go from there and see. It's going to be a lot of tweaking with where and how much characters and how many points are being invested in characters as opposed to other units. So, going to be a lot of tweaking over there, and then as well, I really got Grey Knights are looking mighty nasty. So I might want to give them a little bit of a try, especially since we're getting the first we're getting one Necrons. We're getting one of the first data sheet updates in the sense of like the codexes or whatever Games Workshop intends to drop. When we see it more with Marines, we'll know what they're dropping with data sheets and detachments and stuff. And I'm probably going to play Necrons out through the competitive season. So I'd like to jump over some other armies, show you guys some stuff to it as well. I think it's important to see what these armies can do for what we can face off against. But there is a lot of depth with the Necron Codex that I'm going to be working on. Wow. So out of all the videos, that was another long one. Sorry, guys. Had a lot of information and there are a lot of vehicles to go over. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope something here resonated with you and gave you a little more information. And yeah, get this army together, and we'll be talking to you again soon. Look forward to getting our first battle report with 10th here very soon. Have a good night. I'll talk to you again soon.